All of the food we eat and much of the clothing we wear comes from plants and animals that are raised on farms. Farms are different in type, in size, and even in name.
Welcome to Barn Talk. What happens at the barn stays in the barn, but not today. We're going to let it all out for you guys. Today is going to be a Barn Talk Hot Topics episode. Lots going on in the world, lots going on in our country that we're going to talk about today. But before we do, you guys know the drill. Share the show with the people that you know. The more that you guys do that, the more that this show grows. The word of mouth is like the best way we found to grow a podcast, so we appreciate all of you that have done that. And we just ask if you get any value, if you laugh, if we made you think about something a little harder, if you're related to us on something, all we ask is just you share the show. Another thing you can do to help out Barn Talk is you can leave a review on Spotify or Apple, or you can subscribe to our YouTube channel on YouTube called Barn Talk. We're up to 3,000 5-star reviews on Spotify, and we're getting close to that 2,000 5-star review on Apple. We love hearing from you guys, your feedback, guest recommendations, etc. So keep leaving those reviews. Last thing you can do to help us here at Barn Talk and on our family farm is you can support our direct-to-consumer meat business, Farmer Grade, farmergrade.com. We source high-quality meat from local American family farms. We got American Wagyu, we got dry-aged beef, we got pork that we raise on our farm, we got pasture-raised chicken, and a lot more. All of it is from farmers that show exactly what they do on their operation through social media. And we got a cut of the week that we're always running that's 20% off, but we're getting into the holiday season. It's approaching fast. So if you own a business or you want to get somebody special in your life a holiday gift box of meat, we'd love to be able to service that for you. So we're going to start rolling out holiday gift boxes and holiday specials here in the upcoming months. So be looking out for that, and give us a try if you never have. And you can use code BARNTALK to save 10% off your next order.
Am I getting a holiday gift box?
You might, if you don't piss me off and get on the naughty list. You might be getting coal just like last year.
Gosh, dang. Why you got to be like that?
I will say we did get in some new product this week, actually. Got a whole fresh stew batch of Wagyu, American Wagyu, and we got some pork. And we did some different stuff with some links. We got some campfire links, which is like a cheddar jalapeno link. We got a Kansas City barbecue link, which is fire. And then I just tried those chorizo breakfast links. Those are good too. I mean, I am super, super happy with what the new stuff we've tried this go around. It's good shit. It's good. Really good shit. So we just got to get it in people's hands to try, but I think people will really like it.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I like having variety. It's the spice of life.
It is a spice of life. People, you got to keep it fresh, man.
We're going to have hams.
We are going to have hams. We got 25 whole hams and 50 halves, and we're going to try to get another batch done. So I don't know how many hams we can sell or what the demand is, but I feel like
have turkeys too.
We're going to have turkeys. Turkeys are coming this week or next. So we're going to have turkeys to sell for Thanksgiving. We're going to have hams. We're thinking about getting some prime ribs done.
Oh, yeah.
Whole prime ribs for Christmas. Maybe some I was thinking about doing some Delmonico's and some really thick ass ribeyes, like some big ass steaks.
You get those prime rib roasts in, you might have to up the surveillance.
Ham loaf.
Ham loaf
For nice. Ham balls. Yeah, so we're thinking of all the different things that we can do for the holidays. And if you guys have any suggestions of what you might want to see, or some ideas of some steaks or just different cuts that you would like to see for the holiday season that I'm not thinking about, drop them in the comments, drop them off on Spotify. Always looking for feedback. So,
well, it sounds like if I'm going to be able to buy everything that I want, I better make some money. And the only way I'm going to make some money is to sell some crop, because we're just getting started into harvest. So without further ado, the market update. These are the closes courtesy of Cat's Grain, Washington, Iowa. And corn for December, $4.28. The best local price that I saw was $3.89. It was down 4 cents today, so $3.89 is that cash price. $4.35 in Cedar Rapids at Cargill if you get it there by the 11th, and beans for November $10.46 and $9.89 at Meeker's. I think ADM and Muscatine. I don't think they're taking anything but non-GMO beans, because I think you have to only go to Gulfsport. I think that's the only one that's open. 10.06 if you want to go to the Illinois side. Bean meal October, $332 a ton. Wheat for December, $603. Hogs for October, $84.17. Cattle, $186. Feeder cattle, $248. Crude oil is $73.85, and it was up pretty sharp today. I mean, relatively. I'm a little surprised that crude's not, knock on wood, I don't want it to be higher, but I'm kind of surprised it's not higher than what it is, to be honest. Deere & Company, $409. That's fairly close. I think the 52-week high for Deere is like $426 maybe, so Deere stock holding up pretty well. Bitcoin, 60,000. It's kind of settled back down. It's just right in there, kind of like Tesla. Tesla seems to fluctuate a lot and not go anywhere. Gold, $2,678, so that's up, which you'd expect with all the chaos in the world. So the weather is about as perfect as it can be for doing harvest, at least here in the state of Iowa. And today, corn has had a pretty good run, but today it closed down. Beans closed down like 10 cents. And I think most of that is due to just harvest pressure, because people are just going like hell. And we finished our beans, and we're waiting to start on corn, just because when we did run, it was testing about 25 to 27. And as nice as it is, I think we'll get it done. So I think we're going to let it dry in the field a little bit. We're going to try it this weekend and see where it's at. But, the bean markets rallied over $1, I think, and corn's rallied 50 cents probably. But with where we're at, I just don't feel like there's a whole lot of upside, at least in the short term, because of how much crop is going to come in over a pretty short period of time. And the problem with that is, even though those prices are up, I wouldn't exactly say that they're super profitable. So if you're like us, you're probably thinking, how much money am I going to need to operate next year? Because this year, if you get through this year and you manage to break even, you'll be doing really, really well. And I think a lot of people won't even be able to do that. And I'm not sure, depending on how awesome my marketing is, whether I'll be able to do that. And one of the things that we talk about on here, we've had different people on talking about ag financing, and it's never a bad time to know what your options are. And interest rates have backed off a little bit. So you may be out there and you may be thinking, well, do I need more room to operate going into next year? Am I going to try to pay some stuff off? Do I have some stuff that's adjusting that I may want to take and take some of my debt and stretch it out? I may want to restructure some stuff. And when you start thinking about that and you start perusing either with the banker you got, or if you're searching for a new bank, people always ask, and we always ask this question of guests. It's like, okay, if I'm out there and I'm looking for that, what all should I have? And more importantly, not just for a baker, what should I have for myself? Like, what financial report should I have, and should I do to the point that I understand what they say, so that I'm not relying on my banker or somebody else to create those reports for me? Or at least I'm not relying on the person that I'm asking for money to basically tell me where I'm at. I want to know where I'm at. And so when you go in and you sit down, like what should you have? What should you have in your hand when you walk into a bank or you walk into your financial institution? And I thought that's a great question. And I don't know what the answer is. But fortunately, because of our good friends at Conterra, we got TJ, and TJ is going to tell us the answer to that question. So let them know what you think, TJ.
Hey guys, it's TJ with Conterra. We get that question all the time. Here's kind of what you need to know. We need 3 to 4 years of tax returns so that we can do a historical cash flow analysis. We also need a profit and loss statement if you have any tax returns that haven't been filed or are on extension. And then we're looking for a projection for the next 12 months so we can get an understanding of what your cash flow looks like going forward. From there, we move on to a balance sheet analysis. We're looking for a current balance sheet with detailed schedules. We especially need your debt schedules that establish what your principal and interest obligations are for each year. Next, we go to a credit bureau report. So we need a credit authorization to pull the report. And lastly, we're looking at the collateral you're offering. We need a collateral description, acres, estimated value, etc., so we can understand what type of loan to value you're seeking. And we're happy to answer any of your questions. All of our contact information is on our website at conterraag.com. Thanks, guys.
All right. Well, I thought that was good.
I did too. Now we just got to go into next year with all those reports.
I just hope that there's a bank out there that'll let me in the door.
Yeah, you just spit out those reports, and we'll walk in with our cock swinging, and we'll be good to go.
The one thing that he didn't say, but I think this goes without saying, is you should have those reports, but they should probably be accurate too. So you can't just make up what you want your financials to look like. You should probably they probably should be legitimate. It might work in the short term, but long term, not a good idea.
Yeah, that's for sure.
What's going on?
Well, the election is 32 days out.
That is kind of crazy.
That's a crazy metric to think about, or just crazy timeline. It's crazy that we're coming up on almost a month away from one of the most important elections of our lifetime, in America's lifetime. I feel like I know everybody's saying that, and it's like it feels that way. But does it feel that way because there's just so much media coverage over this election, and it's always in our face 100% of the time, versus maybe there was a more important election back then that it just didn't get talked about enough. So people's perception of, is it actually that big of an election or is it not? But no, it definitely feels like it's a big election.
What is your number one issue?
Number one issue for me, I would say, I heard Chamath Palihapitiya say this. I hope I didn't butcher his last name, but Chamath, if you haven't listened to Chamath at all, he has his own podcast that he does. What's it called?
All In
podcast with him and his good buddies that are successful. He was on Joe Rogan, and I was listening to it in the tractor in the grain cart the other night. And he was talking about how, all this shit really doesn't matter at the end of the day. All these issues that we talk about, all the little stuff that it might be a little issue, it might be a medium-sized issue, but all of it doesn't fucking matter if Iran, China, Russia, or the U.S. drops a nuke. It really doesn't matter, because if you go past that point, destruction, life as we know it will never be the same. It will never be the same. And that is probably one of my most important issues. Is we have got to, I feel like tensions across the world are heating up between countries and between conflicts. All the conflicts going on, they're heating up and they're not cooling down. They're getting worse. And the administration that we have currently, and Kamala, that has been a part of this administration that we have currently, have not done anything that's worked well to cool down these conflicts. And so for me, I really don't want a World War III. I don't want to get drafted. I don't want our children to get drafted. I don't want to go fight a war for the military-industrial complex. I will if it means the survival of America, but I really don't want to do that. And I feel like we don't put enough emphasis on how scary it could end up being if somebody just says, fuck it, let's just nuke these bitches. You know, I mean, seriously, like it just takes one crazy asshole to just say, screw everybody. I'm sick of this. Let's nuke somebody. We got these weapons. We've been creating these weapons, making these weapons for however long, and we never use them. If you push somebody too far, they might end up using one. And so that, to me, is one of the scariest things that we have got to get figured out. We have got to cool down what's going on across the world. And then I would say immigration. Stopping the illegal aliens coming into our country. I know immigration won't get solved because it never gets solved. People just want to run on it. Politicians just want to run on it, fundraise on it, never really actually solve the problem. But we have got to stop the invasion of all these people coming in illegally. And if it was my way, we could make the way of becoming a legal immigrant easier, but that won't happen. So let's just stop the amount of people coming in this country illegally. And because I truly do believe that there are so many, we don't even know how many terrorists have come into this country. We have zero clue. And I just know there's going to be a terrorist attack. In the next 5 years, in the next administration, whoever's in power, there will be a terrorist attack. 100%. Because of what has happened. You can't tell me that Iran has not sent people over here. You cannot tell me China hasn't sent people over here. They're enemies that hate America, that want to see the West fall, our society fall. They're looking at this opportunity of a lifetime of saying, well, America is just wide open. If you're in their situation and you want to bring death to America, you're chomping at the bit. You're sending everybody you can over here to make it work. So those are my two major issues. Those are my two major issues that I think we got to solve. Obviously, the economy is shit too, but I feel like part of the issue of the economy is illegal aliens. We're aiding these people. We're giving them jobs. We're housing them. That's not helping our economy by any means. Yeah. I mean, I don't think it's the biggest factor to why our economy is the way it is, but it's definitely contributing. Mm-hmm. It definitely is contributing in a way. Mm-hmm. So I think those are the two most important issues, because there's a lot of bad that could come. Well, there's already a lot of bad happening from one of these issues. Mm-hmm. Well, there's bad happening on both sides of those issues, but it could get a lot worse if we don't cool shit down and fix the border and stop letting people in by the hundreds, thousands, millions, whatever it is.
So I don't really have anything to add to that. I think we listened to the same podcast. So I thought that was excellent. And I thought the way he articulated his argument about how at the end of the day, all of the issues that we all want to bicker about, don't make a whole, it doesn't make a whole lot of, it doesn't move the needle a whole lot one way or the other, compared to if somebody drops a nuke.
Wasn't he, so he was raised in Sri Lanka, right?
He was born in Sri Lanka, and they had a civil war there.
And it ruined his life. It ruined his parents' life.
And they came to Canada, and they came into in America through Buffalo, through Niagara Falls, and they tried to get asylum in the United States, and they were denied. And so then they had to go before a judge in Canada, and they were granted refugee status. And so, yeah. And then eventually he started working here in America, and he had to go back and get his green card renewed several times, and it took him many years to become a citizen. And so, I mean, I don't think this is what we don't talk about enough is, we're all fired up about illegal immigration and got to stop it. Well, you know what we got to do? We got to stop it, but we got to make legal immigration a whole hell of a lot easier. And we don't ever hear anybody talking about that because there's so many great people, smart people, people that have so much that could add to the culture of this country and to the prosperity of this country that want to do it the right way. And they're getting fucked at it's nothing but a money grab between the lawyers.
And if you're a guy like that now, or a woman like that now, or a family like that now that wants to do it the right way,
there's zero incentive to do it.
Right now you're just watching everybody else just walk in. So why should you do it the right way? Why should you?
Yeah.
That's the problem.
And we don't want to get too far off in the weeds on that. We could do a whole episode about that.
Yeah, I enjoyed his perspective too, because he came from the Civil War, and that was something that, I think a lot of people just don't think about, because his family's life, his parents' life, they had to crawl out of that hole for the rest of their lives.
Yeah.
After that fell.
Yeah, they basically had to start over.
They had to start over.
Yeah, exactly.
Completely. So it's one of those things that we don't think about enough. But what are do you think those are the two major issues?
My biggest thing, that's my biggest thing is, so
economy would probably be 3 for me.
In the world, in the last week or say 10 days, you just look at everything that is going on. You have Ukraine, and I don't think the Biden administration has made a decision on this. I know the UK, they came out and said, oh yeah, go for it. So Ukraine wanted to get longer range missiles from the United States and Great Britain to launch further into Russia. The Russians said, basically, if you're just going to make this, it already is a proxy war. Let's just be honest about that. That's what we're doing. If you're going to do that, basically, they said they're going to reserve the right to launch missiles on NATO allies, which, everybody thinks, well, they're bluffing or whatever. And the Biden administration, I don't think, has made a decision on this. They've been kind of sandbagging it because it's an election year and they don't want to make the wrong call, I think. But that definitely ratchets up the rhetoric and gets you a little further down the road of what could happen, bad things that could happen, that there's no way to take your foot off the throttle till Russia gets backed into a corner and decides they're going to launch a nuke on somewhere in Europe, which if you are a member of NATO, every country in NATO is pledged to defend every other country in NATO. So if Russia was to drop a nuke on a NATO country, then that would mean that everybody in NATO would retaliate against Russia.
Well, and who are they going to look to?
Yep.
They're going to look over to us.
Right.
Because who has nukes? Iran, China, Russia, United States.
Yeah. So you got that going. And then we're going to talk about this, you've got Iran just launched like 180-ish missiles into Israel, and Israel is going to retaliate.
I have this question because, so Hamas attacked Israel. They're just a terrorist organization, but essentially Iran was kind of giving them what they needed to operate.
Yeah.
But now Israel as the country has just said, fuck it, we're going to just attack you now ourselves.
So Iran has always used groups like Hezbollah and Hamas. So they're different, not the same. Hamas operated in Israel, in the occupied settlements. Mm-hmm. They're the bastard child of the PLO, the Palestinian Liberation Organization that Yasser Arafat had back if you're a 80s kid or whatever. And then you've got Hezbollah that operates out of Lebanon and Jordan and basically northern Israel. Both of those groups, terrorist organizations, and
Iran pretty much.
Iran funnels money to them. Syria,
Weapons.
when Syria had money, they did. So, but Iran gives money to Syria also. And then shirt tail allies of them are the Russians, because those who are the enemy of my enemy is my friend. And since the United States backed Saudi Arabia and Egypt and Israel, the Russians, they kind of backed Iran. And so it's this,
And we've kind of backed Ukraine.
Yep, we backed Ukraine. So anyway, they went into, they've got a fight going with Hamas. They went into Lebanon. So those people that were injured, killed, whatever, from the pager deal and from the walkie-talkie deal, those were all Hezbollah people.
Okay.
And they were backed by Iran, and Israel launched airstrikes into Lebanon. Well, then Iran decided they were going to launch an attack directly on Israel. And that's
Them,
just
their
happened.
own entity, their own military.
Entity. Yep.
Their own military.
Right.
Okay.
So those missiles came directly from Iran.
So that's what I thought. That's what because you knew Iran was kind of running around with all these different organizations, but I was just wondering, did they leverage one of their groups that they're backing and giving weapons to and money to, or was it actually just them saying, fuck it, we're drawing the line in the sand, we're going for it?
Yeah. And there was a lot that led up to that, because that the new head of either Hezbollah or Hamas that was in Iran for the coronation of the new president of Iran got killed there. And everybody thinks the Israelis did it, and it happened in Iran, and the Iranians were pissed as hell. And of course, Israel didn't say, hey, yeah, we did that, but everybody knew that they were the ones that did it. So, I mean, they've been poking that for a while. So anyway, the question is, it's not a question of if Israel is going to respond to this. It's just a question of when, and it's a question of how much. And so the United States, they helped shoot down some of those missiles that came. So there are warships in the Gulf that helped intercept part of those missiles that were headed for Israel. And so the United States will be very involved in the intelligence and the planning and using our satellites and using our intelligence agency in their planning of what they're going to do to
retaliate
Iran. However, the United States, I imagine, my guess is, we might as well just talk about this now. The United States is probably pushing very hard for them not to attack Iranian oil infrastructure, because the easy thing for the Israelis to do would be basically to go into, the Suez Canal, where Iran loads out most of its oil. Just about all the oil it exports, if not all the oil it exports, gets loaded out in one small area of the country that is on the nearby the Strait of Hormuz. So for those of you that aren't good with geography, and Middle East geography is really bad because the countries are small and they change names every once in a while, but the Strait of Hormuz is basically the tip of, I would say it's the tip of Saudi Arabia, but it's the country of Dubai, little tiny country of Dubai that's very, very rich. That area sticks out into the Suez Canal, I think, and that area, 25% of the world's oil travels through that, going between the Persian Gulf and is it the Indian Ocean, maybe? Somebody will correct me if I'm off on my geography. But anyway, in that same area is where Iran loads out all the oil that it exports. So if you're the Israelis,
let's go blow that shit up.
Yeah, if you blow that up,
they're going to be poor.
You just slit their sack, basically.
Yeah.
Now then,
because they don't really, do they export much of anything else? I mean,
no, not really.
Oils, they're bread and
terrorism.
Butter.
They export a lot of terrorism.
Yeah, guns.
When you think this through, so the Biden administration hates Iran like every other administration that we've had, but it's an election year.
Well, and we're importing a lot of oil.
We don't import oil from. We import very little oil, if any, and I don't know what the number is, but very little oil from OPEC. Most all the oil we import is from Canada and Mexico, which makes sense. Well, but that you see, it doesn't matter. See, that's something people, because somebody's going to get on here and they're going to say, well, if Trump was president, we'd be oil independent. Well, I think technically we're energy independent, quotations right now. But what's funny is
we're not energy dominant right now.
We're not energy dominant, and we actually export some oil and we actually import some oil. And it's more of a logistics thing, and it's also politics. So we probably could somehow be self-sufficient to where we use only our oil, but I think we would all pay more for the gasoline that we have because of how the refineries are set up, where the refineries are, how the pipelines run. So even though we don't buy any oil from Iran or from OPEC, if you take out 25% of the exports that flow through that area of the world, the price you're paying for oil here in America is going to go up because it's a world price. Mm-hmm. And if you interrupt that in any way, if you blow up an oil facility in Iran, the price of oil is going up, whether you get a drop of oil from them or not. Mm-hmm. And so the Biden administration, I'm sure, is saying to the Israelis, why don't you go bomb one of their nuclear, because they're trying to perfect nuclear power, which also to give themselves a nuclear warhead. So I'm sure they're lobbying very hard for the Israelis. Why don't you go over there and blow up some research center or some military base or whatever? But let's just keep the oil flowing. But there's no guarantee, because if one thing that I think we all know is, at the end of the day, the Israelis, they give no fucks. Like, when it comes to their own sovereignty and what they think they should do, they'll take the advice, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they're
kind of on their own out.
They kind of are.
They're on their own. So, and everybody wants their head. So I feel like they've kind of adopted that mindset.
So yeah. It's very interesting.
Well, it scares me because it almost feels like sides are starting to develop a little bit. Like, if you're going to say World War III would happen now, it would probably be Iran, terrorist organizations under them might have an alliance with Russia, might have an alliance with China, because China would love nothing more than the dollar to fall, United States to fall. Go after Taiwan. We got to defend Israel. We got to defend Ukraine. We got to defend ourselves. We got to defend Taiwan.
Yeah. And Israel's kind of in the same boat on a smaller scale.
You'd have NATO. But everybody, if nukes start flying, everybody's going to be looking at us, because on our side.
Well, you don't want to get to that. If nukes start flying, then nothing matters.
Yeah.
At that point, nothing matters, because the life that you have had it's forever not like that.
Yeah.
But I guess my point in all this is the amount of tension that's floating around in the world, I feel like, has really ratcheted up. And then and we'll talk about this, if you take the dock workers strike going on down the coast, 14 ports shut down. Okay, so if the Israelis mess with oil infrastructure and the port deal doesn't get resolved, and you're 30 days from the election, how long does it take before prices at your Costco, your Target, the gas station, all start shooting up? So it's pretty precarious, I would say, where we are in tension around the world.
Do you think if prices do go up, do you feel like everybody's mind is already made up on who they're voting for? Like, will it really swing people that much if even price goes up in the next 30 days?
I don't think it will.
Because I don't know. Everybody knows shit's expensive. And What's a few more dollars? I mean, is that really going to sway the opinion of the liberal voter?
I don't think.
You know what I mean?
I think the only voter out there yet whose mind is made up are the people
who isn't made up or is made up.
The only people out there whose mind has yet to be made up, and it's really not even that their mind is made up. It's what they will do on election day. The only people left to be decided are the people that have said, I will not vote for Trump. I can't vote for Kamala Harris. I can't vote for her policies, but I hate Donald Trump and I'm not voting for him. Those are the people that, push come to shove on election day, are they going to wake up and are they going to say, I'm going to go to the polls, I'm going to vote?
Probably.
I think that's the only people left.
I don't know if they will even vote. I don't even know if they'll end up voting.
I don't know if they will
You'll
either.
have some that will, but yeah, I agree.
But I don't think there's anybody that has a opinion politically that is at this point sitting on the fence going, well, I just don't know what I'm going to do. There isn't anybody.
That's probably pretty rare.
Yeah. I think the only people left are the people that have said, I'm not voting, I can't vote for Trump, that might wake up and say, well, this Israeli thing or this whatever, something has happened, I don't think we want her. I don't think we want her doing foreign policy. I'm going to vote for Trump. I think those are the only people left to get. It's hard to tell whether there's anybody left that hasn't had their mind made up.
So let's go to the dock workers going on strike. So 25,000 workers went on strike at 14 ports.
Yep.
Could cost the economy up to $5 billion a day.
Yep.
Inflation may be headed back up as a result of this.
Yep.
So what do you think about this? What have you seen? What have you read? What have you heard?
So the spin that I'm seeing on this from a lot of news organizations is all of these dock workers that they interview, they want better wages. They want made whole. They want more money. They've been getting this percentage and it's not keeping up with inflation and they're like everybody else. But the backstory that a lot of people are starting to talk about, and I think you're going to see this spill over into just about every industry in this country and really around the world. They are fighting because they don't want any automation in any of these ports. So one thing you should know about the container unloading in the United States of America is it is all done by hand. In other words,
by men, by people.
Right. So when you pull a truck in to pick up containers, there's a guy in a guardhouse with a clipboard, and he's checking you in, and he's either making sure you're on the list or he's getting, your information, whatever they do. There's a guy doing that. There's a guy driving the truck. When he goes in and parks, there's a guy running the crane that is getting the container out of the yard and loading it on that truck. When a ship comes into port, all that information done manually. Somebody's getting that information of that ship and who you are and what you got and where it fits on the docket and all that, and when you can start unloading, that's done by somebody. And all of the people that set the guys that set I don't know how that works as far as the cranes. I'm assuming that somebody's got to make sure that when they drop those hoists to lift the containers, somebody's got to make sure they're locked in there. And the same token, when they drop them in the yard, they pick those containers up and move them different places. All done by manual labor, by men. Not manual labor, they're driving forklifts or driving this. Okay. Somewhere down in Mississippi, the union found out that whoever owned one of these ports, they put in a RFID tag system where semis coming into the ports to pick up containers would be checked in automatically. And nobody was taking their information. It scanned the tag of the truck and then found it on the ledger and checked them in. And the union went nuts because they do not want automation because they're afraid it's going to take all their jobs. And that's one of the big things they're fighting about. It's not as much about the money they're getting paid. They want to protect all of their workers. And something they don't talk about is, I saw the statistic that most of these ports are actually unemployed. In other words, they don't have enough workers, and the union on purpose keeps it that way because they only want everything to run at a certain pace and not any faster than that because it's job security, and that's what they're most focused on. But are they going to win that?
Oh, well, it's kind of the start to just. This probably won't be the first one of these.
Oh no, this is going to go. This is going to ripple
when you talk about AI, when you talk about automation, when you talk about robotics and robots. I mean, this is just the tip of the iceberg. I mean, robotics aren't even close to where they're able to take people's jobs yet, but that's coming. I mean, AI is already displacing people right now. It's, again, every time we talk about AI on here, I applaud the union for, I think it's important that we keep Americans working because, yeah, you can say Chamath brought that up on Joe Rogan's podcast too, when they started talking about AI. This idea that all these humans, we're going to all just be creative beings and we're just going to find our creative passion and that's what we're going to focus on. When there's people out there that don't give a fuck. They aren't creative. They just want to show up with their lunch pail, do their work, go home, eat a bite, spend time with their kids, watch some television, do it all over again. They want a simple life. They don't want to be creative.
Well,
they don't want to do that shit.
They get purpose from they find purpose in a repetitive job done well.
Right. And those people, those are the kinds of people that have built this country, but also you worry about when it comes to automation, because what are those people going to do? The creative types, those kinds of people might always have something to say, something to create, something to help AI create better stuff. I don't know. But I don't know if they might win. But I don't know, as a whole industry of the American worker, will the American worker win overall if companies realize robotics are more efficient, safer, less OSHA violations, less casualties or injuries, less no workers' comp. I mean,
no downtime,
24/7. I mean, they're like, when you talk about port workers, it's like, Jesus, if those ports were ran by robots.
Well,
it would be nonstop. It'd be efficient. It'd be all those things we just listed. But so I applaud them for sticking up for the workers because I think that's important. And I think that they're doing their job by doing that. But I don't know if they're going to win the battle. And as a business owner myself, when I think about if I ever own my own processing facility or cutting facility someday or fulfillment center, it's like you're going to find yourself in this situation where it's like, do you say, fuck automation, fuck AI, fuck robotics? I don't care. We're going to have real people working here making real shit. And I love that. But are you going to be able to operate? Are you just going to be displaced and put out of business if you don't adopt it to some level?
Or legally, are you going to be able to employ people where there's sharp things?
Right. Exactly. Like what? I love the idea of saying screw AI, of taking everybody's jobs and all that, but I don't know if we can win that battle. I don't know if that's going to pan out to win. And I'm a realist at the same time. Like, that's all great saying go fuck the system, but at a certain point, I don't know if you can say screw the system if technology advances and becomes that, like it just becomes a no-brainer that this is the way we have to operate.
So the dock workers got a couple of things that are gonna hurt them. So my honest opinion is that they are gonna win this battle. But my opinion also is they're gonna lose this war.
Yeah.
By that I mean they have picked a really good time for this to happen, because you can bet your ass that the Biden administration, the Harris administration, they are working feverishly to get this deal done because they don't want this going on heading up to Election Day. And we have an economy that is still very dependent on stuff being imported. So I think that they will get a lot of what they want, and I think they'll go back to work. Now then, the flip side of this is 2 points I'll make. One, if you make the majority of your shit in America, you don't need near as many dock workers, because if you're not importing it from China, Indonesia, Vietnam, South Korea, whatever, if you're making it here in America, how many containers you move through a port isn't near as big a deal.
We might export some of that, though.
Right, you may export some of that.
Because you might make an oversupply of whatever.
But I think people are going to make the argument that national security, we need to onshore, and it's already happening. We're already doing that. The number of companies that are moving stuff back to the United States for security reasons, for all kinds of reasons, that's going up. Okay, the other thing that I think is going to cost them dearly in the long run is if you are Canada, and I less likely Canada, but if you're Mexico, you're looking at this and you're saying, we'll just build a port in Mexico and we'll automate the shit out of it. We'll get somebody to invest down here, and it'll be all non-union workers, and we'll pay them a third of what we're paying everywhere else, and then we'll put it on rail and we'll send it to the United States. And that's the problem when you're playing in a world economy. And if you're interested, if you get out and get on YouTube,
that's the thing. If we don't, somebody will.
So and you can already see this if you get on, Google or YouTube, but I think you can find this on YouTube, because now then there's a lot of comparisons that have come up. Just search for modern container ports or automated container ports, and they'll show you like South Korea or Taiwan or someplace like that, where they're using automated container haulers that are cabless. It's just a flat platform. They're computerized. They're using AI. They have the whole yard geofenced, and all of these running, and they know exactly where everything is. And when a load is ready, that information is sent to one of these flatbeds, and it automatically goes there. And then the crane, the picker that picks they're still unloading the containers off the ship using men running cranes. But once they're in the yard, to load them, to go out of the yard, that's all automated. So watch that, because it's very interesting. And if you can imagine, their cost to run that port, way cheaper than what it is to run a port in America.
Big initial investment, but I bet it's paying off.
Yep. And they run 24 hours a day.
Yeah.
So, I think at the end of the day, I think that your points are correct. I think that this deal will get settled. They will win this battle. But I think they're going to lose the war. And the guy that is the union chief, and this is just my snarky comment, never trust an old white guy that's got a Joey Buttafuoco chain. And that guy, I haven't fact-checked this, but I've seen a lot of reports that the guy that is the union boss for this makes somewhere around $900,000 a year and has a 60-foot yacht and drives a Bentley. So the union has done very well for him, and so he's going down and standing on the line with these guys that go to work every day, and he's making his pitch. But the union has been very good to him, not necessarily as good for the people that are the rank and file members.
Yeah.
But I do agree with you that we got a lot of people we need to employ, and how that all gets sorted out, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know either. AI is one of those topics that I don't think it's like politicians are going to start talking about it or really bring that up until it's going to be a few years from now. But it's evolving really, really fast, and it's going to be here before you know it. And I don't know how long robotics will come into the mix of legit walking robots, but I think that'll be coming in our lifetime as well. So,
and
I don't know where it all goes. I don't know what's going to happen to all these people, and that's just an issue we're going to have to. It's either going to be we reject this and we win, we reject this and we lose, and we got to find a way to evolve as humans.
I've said this before, and I think it's just there's two universes that are running parallel, and I don't know what happens, but on the one hand, you have this technology being robotics, AI, automation, that has the possibility of doing amazing things. The other side of that technology that we didn't touch on, but is very important, is the cost of energy. We're also making great strides in getting to the point that the cost of energy is so low that in and of itself makes the chances of world war less and less and less, because just about every war that has ever happened is over resources. And if we can get to a point where you have very low cost or no cost, unlimited amounts of energy, it really throttles back the desire of people to start a war and kill people to get things because they can get their own things. So over here you have this. You have all of these possibilities, and the sky's the limit as far as what can happen. Then on the other side, over here, you have the threat of total annihilation or an EMP or whatever on a global scale, at which time automation, technology, cheap energy, and robotics don't matter because you have no power to run any of those things. Mm-hmm. So you have two parallels where the world gets a whole lot better, I think, or we could go back to Stone Age.
And if you do any podcast listening or done any of your own research whatsoever, you will see and hear from a lot of people that our power grid is very fragile.
Very
extremely fragile. Like, I listened to a podcast or saw a clip of a podcast of a former CIA or FBI agent that was talking about, what's the number one thing that scared you that like is the most realistic scenario of a disaster that could happen in the United States. He said power grid. Mm-hmm. Power grid. He's got a generator. He's got a gas generator. He's got gas on hand. He is prepared for a power grid going off because he said that is the most vulnerable thing, and that is one of those things that it's come close
many times.
Yeah. And so you're right. Like that thought of that happening. Now, we raise a lot of hogs in hog barns here in Iowa and North Carolina too. We'll get to North Carolina. The idea, like, everybody talks about what it'd look like in the cities if the power went off. But if the power went off in the dead heat of summer and we had all these hogs and hog barns, holy shit. Or chickens or turkeys or any livestock for that matter. People want to talk about the disasters of what cities would look like, which they would be. But the thought of what we're going to do with all these pigs, chickens, turkeys, cattle, yeah, they're either going to die.
Right.
And the stench is going to be horrendous.
Yeah.
Or we're going to have hogs roaming
everywhere.
There won't be you ain't going to be able to grow shit because it's going to be rooted to holy hell.
Yeah, there will not be a blade of grass in most of Iowa that isn't turned over.
And it doesn't matter. People would shoot them and eat them and hunt. There would still be too many. There would still be way too many.
Yeah.
Millions.
So we've made this comment before. It's interesting because people are like, "Oh, all these people are going to flee the city," and I'm like, they would flee the city and they would get about so far in the country, and then somebody would be like, What's that? What's that smell?
Yeah.
Oh my God, that's terrible. What is that?" And then they would be like, "Now that's worst case scenario if all these pigs." Of a bunch of these pigs died within these buildings, but your only choice is like if the grid goes down and the transportation goes down, that you can't get feed to them and you can't operate the ventilation. All you can do is open all the gates and let them out.
Open the doors and say.
And I don't know what that looks like.
Drop the curtains.
It looks pretty crazy. I think a lot of people from the cities would be like, "What in the hell has happened?"
Yeah.
So
yeah, no, and that's funny because nobody talks about that scenario. Like everybody talks about the cities, but nobody ever talks about but that's our perspective because it's like that's immediately what goes to my head is like, holy shit, there would be a lot of livestock running around.
Yeah,
a lot
for one summer.
Yeah, I know. Well, you might have because they evolve, right? You might have the strong.
You'll have some that will make, but I mean,
that would survive.
The countryside would be strewn with carcasses because there's a limit to what's out there that they can forage for. So I don't know, crazy to think about.
Yeah, it definitely is.
And speaking of crazy, I mean, we wouldn't want to end this up without talking about the hurricanes and
North Carolina,
Helene, right?
Helene or Helene.
Helene.
Yeah, that's a tough situation out in North Carolina. Prayers to all the people affected by that and all the people that are down there working. A lot of people died. A lot of people are injured.
50, I think it might be 60 maybe.
And I'm sure they don't know.
They don't
even, it's not even, it's just the beginning of what the rebuilding process and finding everybody and, locating everyone and all that. But tough situation, tough deal, a natural disaster. You can't really do anything about it besides hunker down and hope it doesn't affect you. But it did affect some people. And what I was thinking about is, and I couldn't find anything, and I guess I didn't do too much digging. How many farms out there were affected? Because North Carolina, there's a lot of farming, a lot of agriculture in that state. So I'd be curious to know how many family farms out there, just farming operations, got hammered by this thing.
Yeah,
absolutely. That sucks.
Yeah, Asheville, North Carolina. Basically cut off. Bunch of the roads and bridges were destroyed, and we actually went out there 2 years ago. We went down to Daytona for a Jeep thing, and then on the way, my wife always wanted to go to the Biltmore, so we went out and we went to Asheville, and just the geography of how that city sits. I mean, it sits down. You come out of the mountains and it's just downhill into where it's at. And I mean, all that water just pounded it. And really still not seeing a whole lot of like video of what's going on there. But from every account that I've seen or heard, it's been
and the
horrendous.
weird part is, and I feel like people have been talking about this more and more online from real ass people, is where's the news coverage? Like there's like been everybody wants to talk about P. Diddy, but nobody wants to talk about the fucking hurricane that just devastated North Carolina.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and FEMA.
It's like nobody's even talking about it. Nobody's bringing awareness to it. Nobody's like, just another hurricane that just killed people and devastated a whole state. Like,
multiple states, really. And they asked old Joe about it, and he just said, "Oh, we're doing all we can."
Surprised he's still ticking.
Oh, well, those of you that might have forgotten, Joe Biden is still president.
I know, right?
I mean, I don't know how much.
Is it him or is he cloned?
Well, I mean, not to go backwards, but I guess the one upside, if you're somebody that doesn't like change, the one good thing you got is that technically, if Kamala Harris wins the presidency, absolutely nothing will change because the same people that were handling Joe will be handling her. Because she's not. I don't think she's...
We're just going to keep going down this perpetual trajectory towards the ground. We'll just keep going down.
It's Idiocracy. Those of you that haven't seen it need to watch it.
You know what? You've always just said that to me, and I never seen the movie, and you've told me the spiel 100 times about what it's about and all that. But I've started to see more and more comments of people literally saying what you have said.
You just gotta watch it.
It's Idiocracy.
You gotta watch it because you will be like, oh man. I mean, it obviously takes it to the extreme, but then again, how far are we on the road to that extreme? I mean, it's scary.
It is scary. Well, last thing we're going to talk about today, guys, is the vice president debate that went on between Tim Walz and JD Vance. And I'll give you my thoughts right off the bat. What I can honestly say is it was refreshing to see two grown-ass men debate each other and do it in a manner that was actually like pleasant and respectful to one another. And man, they actually it was like it was back in the old days. It was actually respectful. They shook hands afterwards. It didn't seem like it was out to get each other all the time. They came together on some issues just like, hey, I agree with you on this, but I think we should solve it this way rather than your way. And really refreshing to see that. A lot of people were joking online that, man, can we vote? Can the election be between these two? Or can I vote for JD? Can we put up JD as for the president? So I really, that was my first major key takeaway. And I didn't watch the whole thing, but I did watch part of it. And I was very, very happy to see that needs to be the norm out there for debates, because the last few presidential debates we've had has just been atrocious, and it just leaves a bad taste in your mouth every time you watch one of those, because it goes south. It just feels like two parties just butting heads the whole time, and it divides us more than it brings us together. And I felt like last night there were some topics there where it felt like, hey, there is a middle ground to be had here. Hey, we might think a little bit differently on how we can solve this, but this issue needs to be solved. And we can come together and solve it. So that was really cool and refreshing to see. JD Vance, I'm just going to say it. This dude, I like JD Vance a lot. He answers the question. Like I said on the previous podcast, the dude answers the question. It doesn't matter what question you ask him, he answers the question. That's what I like about him. A lot of these people, when they get asked a question on the debate stage, it is just a moment for them to talk about their campaign and their objectives rather than answering the question. And I felt like he always does. He does that really well. But he performed really, really well. He's very well spoken. He does not get rattled. There was a point in there that the moderators tried to fact check him, and then he fact checked them back when they told him that there was going to be no fact checking happening in that debate. But they did try to fact check him, and he fact checked them back, which was pretty cool to see. Tim Walz, I respect him. I'll say that. I respected his demeanor. I respected that he was respectful to JD. I felt like they were able to talk. They were able to have a good debate, and that's what it's about. So do I agree with everything that Tim Walz, his policies and what him and Kamala? I don't trust Tim, I guess, is my biggest thing. He's just another puppet, and he's going to be played just like Kamala with the same people that are playing Joe Biden. They're going to play those two as well, and I really don't think that they're going to get a whole lot of shit done for us for the betterment of this country. That's just my opinion. And I think Trump's the way. But overall, I was impressed with J.D. Vance. I was happy to see that the debate actually went in a matter that of respect. There was respect there, and that was nice to see, rather than all this divisive shit all the time. So
yeah, I won't add much to that. I'll say that I felt like that was kind of a coming out party for J.D. Vance. I think a lot of people that had not given him much credit kind of woke up and went, "Wow, he really commands. He has
respect.
A strong command of presence there." I thought he did a great job. So the story that I think will come out of that is when Trump wins, a lot has been said about how he can't get anything done because now then, he's got 4 years and they will fight him tooth and nail. That is true, but I'll tell you what, knowing that J.D. Vance is there, I think that guy 4 years from today or 4 years from the election, man, if he keeps at it, I think he'd make a hell of a presidential candidate, and he's young.
I know he is.
That's
young.
the thing I like. I like he's young. He's not one of these old guys that has a career politician. I mean, yes, he's a politician, but he's made money outside of politics.
He's a new blood, new form of it.
Yep. The other thing, and I'll agree with you about Tim Waltz. I'd probably go fishing with the guy. I would listen to him at the coffee shop. I'd say hi, how's it going, and all that. He doesn't debate well, and he was in over his head. You could tell that you could have played. There was multiple times in that debate that you could have played the TikTok clip of it was at that moment that he knew that he had fucked up.
Yeah,
because he was like, "Oh,
JD's got his act. He's used. I mean, he can public speak.
Yeah,
he's used to it. He's been doing it.
He did better when they came back towards the end, and everybody's talking about that they dinged J.D. Vance on the January 6th question. And I'll tell you what, that January 6th shit, I think that if I was in his shoes, I would have said,
yeah, it's bullshit. It was bullshit.
It's bullshit.
Because all us real Americans fucking know.
Well, there's no way you answer that. The reason they want to ask you that question is because there's no way to answer it that somebody's not going to jump on you about it. So I was like, yeah. They're like, oh, he didn't answer that question very well. Well, there is no way for the liberal part of America that you can answer that question. Anybody that's a conservative, the only way to answer it is go, well, I think January 6th was a crock of shit, and it was, it was drummed up, and it's a big nothing. But you can't say that because
you'll piss off the other side.
Well, yeah, because they're not going to accept that. So anyway, I actually felt like, man, this was a good, I don't know, maybe let a little bit of the political rhetoric pressure off right before this election. The last thing I'll say is I was curious. I will get this number. Think about how much money has not been made by the media because of how short this political campaign is now. Like when you think about all the shit you get in the mail and all the TV ads that are just run. And this year, we haven't really had any of that because there hasn't been time.
Yeah.
Well, but I mean, compared to, I wonder what that number is as far as how many hundreds of $1 million have not been spent.
I don't think people tune in anymore either. Like,
yeah, that's true.
Because they probably know that they can't spend as much money because they're not making enough money, and they know people ain't gonna watch it.
Yeah.
But I tuned into, what was it? Was it MSNBC that hosted it, or was it?
Wasn't it ABC?
I don't know.
CBS?
It could have been CBS. Anyway, I think it was MSNBC because they had a talk show. They had a panelist of left-wing media analysts that were talking after it on their long table. And I just listened to it for a little bit because I was like, man, we talk about how this media is so goddamn terrible and it's all about ratings and it's just theater at this point. You can't even watch that shit. The first thing that comes out of their mouth was J.D. Vance had some good points, but it's pretty damn clear that Tim Walz won this debate. I mean, they literally tell you what to think.
Yeah.
They don't, that's what I hate about it. If they would come to their senses, break down the debate and just talk about the debate. It's the problem with it is they all have a narrative. They're all being pushed to push you to have an opinion of their way of thinking. And that's the problem because right off the bat, right when we went from the debate right into that show, first thing, they're just convincing you right off the bat that that's how you should think. You're crazy not to think it any other way. And that's the problem.
Yep. Something you should always remember. The words of Aaron Rodgers, never look to somebody or never take criticism from someone that you would not look to for advice. Mm-hmm. Now that is a great quote. And I would never look to anyone on big media for any advice. No. So I'm not going to listen to what they tell me to think.
They're paid talking heads. So.
And it all goes back to, I don't know what their number of viewers are.
I feel like it's going to die. In my lifetime, I think big media is fucked.
I think once that generation is gone,
fucked. And you watch the advertisements for that debate, big pharma.
Restless. Do you suffer from dry mouth?
Yeah.
Do you have restless toes? Do you have ringing in your ears? Do you fill in the blank, whatever it is?
Do you have red bumps on your wiener?
Yeah. Now that might be a sign of a bigger problem. You should probably get that looked at. One last thing that we'll follow up. And I just got to say this. Congratulations to Sean Ryan. Sean Ryan has had the number one podcast in America last week, and his episode on Joe Rogan was the number one podcast. That guy is a class act. He's coming here. He's going to be on Barn Talk next week. No, damn it. I wish he was.
That would be fucking awesome. Yeah, we had some people reach out to us after we mentioned that we really like Sean Ryan on the last episode, but that if there's any guy that deserves that honor, it's that guy, because what he does, I think, is so important. The conversations, the people he has on his show is so important, and it's not talked about. Yep. And again, we say it on this show a ton of times, but real critical thinking Americans that actually are thinking about shit, that are actually woken up,
trying to find answers,
lives in the world of listening to podcasts and lives in the world of what Sean Ryan's doing, what Joe Rogan's doing, what we're trying to do. What real ass people are having real ass conversations on podcasts. Yep. With real ass people with something to say. Yep. Not with any bias, not being paid by a corporation to say something one way or the other.
I'm a little
real
biased.
Ass shit.
I'm a little biased. Well, but that's being paid by a corporation.
The difference is, and this is what Joe said to Sean Ryan on that episode, was you're just you.
Yeah. Sean
Ryan is just Sean Ryan.
Yeah.
And that's why people love Sean Ryan. And that's 100%. Why they love that show, because they trust that Sean Ryan is going to stay true to who Sean Ryan is. And that is everything. That's why people love Joe Rogan. That's why people love Sean Ryan. That's why people love Barn Talk. That's what we need more of that shit, because big media, nobody trusts that shit. We need more people having real ass conversations. So anyway, I think that's going to wrap it up. I don't have anything else to say. We appreciate your guys' support tremendously. We love you guys. Feel free to subscribe on YouTube. Listen to us on all the streaming platforms for audio. Leave a review on Spotify or Apple. If you want to get your family some meat, head over to farmergrade.com. Use code BARNTALK to save 10%. And we'll see you back here next week for another episode.